Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming the program author Eric Madeen, and he is the author of Water Drumming in the Soul. Before I bring in today's guest, a quick reminder that selected interviews are available at our website, as well as on major platforms like Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and many more. Eric, how are you?
I'm great, Don. Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, my story is a long one, so I'll try to keep it short. After I graduated from the University of Arizona, I went into the Peace Corps in Gabon, Africa, in the rural school construction program, and I built a primary school complex just about smack dab in the middle of the country in an equatorial village surrounded by rainforest. And I got a novel out of that experience, and that's what we're going to talk about. But before we go into that, as far as education goes, I got my MFA, Master's in Fine Arts and Creativity and Literature from San Diego State University. And the workshops, the seminars, the discussion between writers and professor was such a turn-on for me compared to other classes with just the lecturer, the professor going on, blah, blah, blah. I like this banter, this snappy patter going back and forth in these seminars that I went into the MFA and I got a book out of it, and that's what we're going to talk about.
So tell us about your book.
Well, the book is a literary love story, and it's between a Peace Corps volunteer on mission to build a medical dispensary in an equatorial village. And right when he makes his approach into the village, he has to stop to take a pit stop because he's expecting a big audience and speeches and all that. He's nervous. And then he hears something, this kind of water popping sound and a singing, and he's drawn to it. And he goes over and sees this beautiful woman, this beautiful African lady playing the stream as a drum, called water drumming, which originated with pygmies in Central Africa and then went on to Bantu tribes throughout much of Africa. So the water drumming was so stunning for him that he's spellbound and he's drawn to it. And in the end, he becomes a hunter captured by this game, so to speak, and that he's so utterly in love with this lady and transfixed that she mesmerizes him, and the love goes deep. And the beauty, again, or one of the completely original parts of the book, is that a good third or more is told from her point of view, third person limited, meaning limited to her consciousness, her seeing. And I'm told that it simply crackles, that which is told from her point of view as well as his.
Now, who did you write your book for specifically? Who's your target audience here?
Well, foremost, it's myself. It's a story I had to get out of myself. And the more I wrote it and workshopped it, the more I had readers in mind. And who they are? Well, from the ages of 16 and up, fun for all ages. And they're for people who are curious about travel, about geography, other countries, other people. And the people who don't want to spend, say, 12, 15 hours in the dentist chair, which is the airplane seat and all the delays and all that. It's for those people who want to enlarge their world through literature. And my book is literature. So that's the category. And I wrote it for those who want to enlarge their worlds, whoever they may be.
So, could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you would say runs throughout your book?
Well, that's a highly reductive question because as a novelist, I work generatively. I'm generating. But on a reductive note, I would say that I'm aiming it at those who are into love stories, more so than the categorical romance, but love stories that go beyond borders, that break borders, that take you empathically into new zones and different kinds of love in a different culture and cross-culture that vibrates between the two characters, like jumper cable sparks, if you will.
So if you had to choose, what would you say is the single most important idea you're sharing in your book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
Well, again, that's reductive, but I would add value to readers' life is by teaching them something they would never experience in Chicago, Illinois, or Nebraska, Florida, wherever. And I'm taking them somewhere with such meticulous, but also vibrant voice that they feel like, wow, this story is going to hang with me. And the hang time in the story is brilliant in that it's circumambulatory, circles back to the beginning. And I'm, of course, not going to give away the ending, but it'll blow you away.
So if you were asked to compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
Well, another reductive question, but it's sui generis, meaning it's completely unique, and nothing, for example, my professors in the MFA program could compare it to. But if I had to compare it to any books, and I can't because it's sui generis, I'd compare it to Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness as to the setting, and Paul Theroux's Mosquito Coast as to the characterizations and plotting.
So tell us briefly about some of the characters in the book.
Well, that's a great question, Don, and I'm very happy that you asked it. I mentioned David Fields, the main character, and it's told from his point of view, third person limited, and he's from Kansas. I have him from Kansas as it is Middle America. So I wanted him to be this Middle American archetype, if you will. And he's going to some place he's never been before, and he meets this stunning woman, this young lady, beautiful young lady, and she's so fascinating in the depths I go into to capture her soul. And I'm writing much of it, a third of it or more, from her point of view, and the language I use resonates with simplicity, yet there are these deep, dark forces, as one would find in Hemingway, for example, his iceberg technique. You can see the surface, but you have to imagine what's going on below the surface. So there are these deep, dark forces to stir around in, and the other characters are secondary, but they play a major part as well. One is the medicine man, who she's in the village to be treated by, and the other are David's friends who he's building the school with and who he goes out hunting with. And I'll answer that question in more detail a little later because it's fascinating.
Was there a character or scene that you could say is your favorite?
Yeah, Don, I love them all, but I especially love the one toward the end where David Fields, which kind of is the opposite of Forrest. And anyway, he's out hunting on a hunting trip in the rainforest. And of course, it's at night, and they had finished hunting. And David always brought a bottle of whiskey or gin to crack it open to get them to expound in their orality. Orality meaning oral culture, oral tradition. So they told stories in this scene that are highly original, and they were recorded by a volunteer in northeastern Gabon, who then translated them through French into English. And the two stories that I use resonate, echo with the plot dynamic. And there's this hang time and expressions of his friends, his village friends, that are like, wow. The reader then thinks back to that scene around the fire and thinks, what the hell happened in the end? How did it go down?
So why did you become a writer, specifically a Peace Corps writer?
Well, I'm highly imaginative. I'm from a very creative family. My father was a creative genius, and he made his living as an ad man, and he won awards and so on in my hometown, a suburb of Chicago. And I started writing at a very young age, and writing and reading came as naturally to me as breathing. So the Batman series back in the 60s, I would write stories based on that. Then later in high school, I wrote a story that the teacher really loved, and he encouraged me to go on, and I did. In undergrad, I took several workshops, as I mentioned earlier, and one thing built on another until I was actually making my living as a copywriter, a professional advertising copywriter, which took me as far as Tokyo back in the bubble days, meaning money was running like gold through the streets. And I was being taken to hostess clubs, and they threw for the tab since they ran into thousands and thousands of dead presidents, meaning dollars. And the whole time there was electric. And after that, I went into the MFA program because I wanted to write what I wanted to write, not some stuff for an advertising campaign for Sony or Mazda, and Sony as in the slogan, Sony no baloney. So I proved myself as a professional writer and made the kind of money, the folding kind of money that I did as a copywriter.
So are your characters pure fiction, or do you draw from people you know in real life?
I do both, and that's the beauty of the book. That's what gives it its kind of crackling fictional reality that I love in readers I like to read. And as I mentioned, I lived with two Gabonese women, and the second one had a taboo that many Africans, especially Bantu, have, and it's given to them by their parents and extended family as a kind of sacrifice for the ancestors. So they look at the baby and they say, well, this boy's taboo is he can't eat his own kill, animals that he kills. So the woman's, David's girlfriend's, his lover's taboo is she can't make love during the day. So that figures into the plot dynamic, and it teaches at the same time this deep, dark stuff about magic, black magic, juju, good and bad juju, juju being a kind of energy. And it covers all those things narratively as a story. So that's the beauty of it, the depths of being there in this outer world. And then at the same time, the inner world, the soul of David's girlfriend, the soul of David. So soul is very much in there, to the point that I put it in the title, Water Drumming in the Soul, which is especially pertinent given this time of AI that we're more and more going into.
So, in your opinion, who should buy your book?
Who should buy my book are those readers or potential readers who want to escape or enlarge their world and, as I said, not sit 12 hours in the dentist chair in the airplane seat, but read about a world entirely different from their own, to the point that they can empathize and feel deeply in their soul. And I'm told by several women writers that they cried at the end, and they said that was a good thing. And a few of them compared me to Hemingway on that, as in the depths of the book.
Do you have a website?
I do indeed, Don, and it's ericmadeen.com, EricMadeen, ericmadeen.com. And I hope readers go there.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Eric Madeen, and he's the author of Water Drumming in the Soul. Eric, thanks very much for being with us today.
It's been a pleasure, Don, and I love your questions, and I hope that readers will get into their soul through mine. Thank you.
This is Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of the Author Show. Go out there, buy the book today, and please share this interview with your friends so they too have the opportunity to discover our guests and their work. The Author Show can be accessed at any time at theauthorshow.com, and for easy access to the show on your mobile devices, just download our app in the App Store or Google Play Store through the QR code on our website. And whether you're an author who would like to be featured or a reader in search of new books to read, the Author Show is a great place to start. Check us daily as we continue to introduce wonderful authors of very interesting books on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.